Hi, I'm Rabbi Johanna Hershenson. Welcome to Words of Torah. This week we are studying the portion called Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah. And paradoxically, of course, noting the life of Sarah, the first thing we learn in this portion is that Sarah dies. And it's an interesting portion in the transmission of the mantle of leadership of this early family that becomes the Jewish people. In this portion, we begin with Sarah's death and we'll end with Abraham's death. And so the family tree, right, continues through Isaac. And what is it that makes Isaac so much different than his parents, Abraham and Sarah? The rabbis noticed it in ancient times, and the Musar rabbis of the modern era have really highlighted an interesting character trait in Isaac, which maybe isn't so obvious unless we think about his whole life. And the character trait that the Musar rabbis derive from the examples set by the character Isaac is that of, in Hebrew, minuchat hanefesh, rest or calm state of the soul. In English, equanimity. Maybe solidity is quite similar, equanimity, right? The capacity to not hit strong emotions, particularly when faced with a crisis or a traumatic situation. One who responds with equanimity is one who is able to sort of keep a cool head about him or herself and keep some space for rational thought, and reason. So, how does Isaac demonstrate equanimity? Well, interestingly, the ancient rabbis actually referred to Isaac as somewhat passive and shy. I mean, think about the poor guy. His name Yitzchak refers to the fact that when Abraham and Sarah learn that they will bear a child in their old age, they find it funny, right? They're past that prime for childbirth. And then immediately we learn that Abraham is going to take Isaac off for sacrifice. And even along the way, Isaac asks his father, we got the wood, we got the fire, where's the animal for sacrifice? And Abraham blows him off, oh, God will provide, no worries. And if Isaac were a young child, like we think of him, 8, 9 years old, because he seems that way in the narrative, the simple child from Passover, right? We forgive his naivete and his passivity. But the ancient rabbis tell us he's 34 years old. And that begs a question for such naivete or simplicity. It's not age appropriate. Is something wrong with Isaac? Or, as the Musar rabbis are going to tell us, is something right about Isaac? Um, Isaac never speaks to his father again after this incident. And when it's time for Isaac to be married off, right, his father sets it up and sends Rebecca to meet Isaac while Isaac is at his mother Sarah's tent. And Rebecca gets off her camel, and she's easy to look at. She's comfortable in Sarah's tent. And so he takes her as his wife, and then he loves her, right? But there's a lack of excitement or sparks or fireworks in this romance. And finally, I would suggest in next week's portion, we'll be introduced to Isaac's future, that is his lineage, Jacob and Esau. And Rebecca learns that the younger twin will supplant the older. And whether she trusts in that prophecy or not, we don't know, because she does take it into her own hands. She takes proactive measures to help Jacob deceive his father Isaac and Esau. Notice as I take us through highlights in Isaac's life in the Torah, there are actions that are put forth by other people. We don't see Isaac doing a whole heck of a lot for himself. The Musar rabbis interestingly suggest that Isaac is a model of equanimity. They don't want to conceive that something's wrong with Isaac, either that he's suffering as a child who experienced a lot of adverse situations, or maybe he's cognitively or developmentally challenged. We don't have any suggestion except behavior that we want to account for. The Musar rabbis say no, that Isaac was a master of strong emotions. And in both times of joy and hardship, Isaac could hold it together and not get too excited or too hurt or too repulsed or too angry. He just knew how to walk this line where reason would push him forward. I don't know. I think the jury's out on Isaac, but I do think that the lesson about equanimity and the challenge of finding the sweet spot that is equanimity and not passivity or self-deprecation is a challenge. But I also think the challenge is ours. And if there were ever a time in history where we needed to not be triggered so easily, it's this time. I hope that Isaac does set for us an example in which we can allow our own stories, our narratives to unfold. The next story that will overlap with ours but go on after us unfold and reap the joys, find solace and humility in the sadnesses, but mostly be kind and loving in relationship with one another. Have a good one. Happy Torah study.